Welcome to Automation Caffeine, your dose of invigorating business automation tips packed as fun anecdotes and weird questions. My name is Jesse. I'm co-founder of Trigger and serial entrepreneur, but most well known for my coffee snobism. Today, I'm joined by someone who does not apparently like coffee, Joep Donders. Hi, Joep.
Hey, yes, thanks for having me.
Hey, yeah, good to have you on. I've been looking forward to it. I have a thing always before we get started for the live audience. If you have any questions to Joep, please add them in the comments. We'll pick them up at the end during the live Q&A. So here we go. Joep, you've had some time to prep this one. In 3 words, who are you?
Yeah, first of all, I would say I loved your funky intro, Jesse.
Oh, nice. That's Marta. Yeah.
Oh yeah. So I don't have any caffeine because I don't drink any coffee, but the intro made me right awake. 3 words about me. I think I'm a builder, an explorer, and a runner.
Builder, explorer, and a runner.
Yes.
Interesting. So the running, is that sort of connected to the building and the exploring, or is that a separate thing? Is that just running, like running?
I think they're all 3 connected. So I like to build stuff. Not that I'm a technical guy who likes to build his own house, but I like to build a business. I like to build my family. I like to build my own knowledge, but I also like to build my running condition, for example. And the way I like to build stuff is maybe for some outsiders in a bit of a monotonous way, but I like consistency. And I like the fact that consistency over years builds up. And that's the sort of way of working I've made myself over the years. Started during studies and also during my first years of work. And I really like the sort of slow effects when you put layer over layer over layer. And that brings running, business, building together. And well, it would be maybe a little bit too monotonous if it were only that. I also like to explore. So I like to throw myself into the deep. I like to explore different cultures, different countries. We do that with a company. We'll talk about it later, probably. Outside of our borders as well. But I also like to explore concepts or fields of business that I'm not really known with, that I might not ever be an expert with, but just like to touch base and learn more about it.
Hence coming on a show called Automation Caffeine while not liking caffeine.
That's it. Yeah.
There you go. You told me that, and I found this very interesting, that you and Marlijn, you bought the company in a management buyout, and that you had fewer sleepless nights after you bought it out than before. And to me, that sounds incredible because it always looks like, if you work in a company, you would have less sleepless nights than being an entrepreneur. I know that I had a lot of them. So how did that happen? How can you have fewer sleepless nights?
Yeah. So I feel very responsible if I'm doing stuff for other people. When I ran the company for the previous owner, I was very considerate that I was working with someone else's resources. And that's always difficult to explain if you're, for example, A/B testing or A/B testing with other people's resources. There's going to be part of it that's going down the drain.
Yeah.
It's needed for a company like ours to have those experiments, but it's sometimes also difficult to explain, and it's more difficult to make mistakes, in my opinion, with other people's resources than with my own resources, because I know in the end, like we're doing it now, we might pour resources into a certain experiment which won't work, but we also know that if we don't experiment, we're not going to grow, and it's crucial for our survival. So I think that sort of brings it together. Like, I am now completely making the decisions on my own, and I'm also the one who's having maybe the biggest problem if stuff doesn't work. But I'm okay with that. I'm okay with handling that. But I don't like to have the burden up on someone else.
Yeah. Oh, that makes a lot of sense. I think that many people don't view it that way, and it's an interesting way to look at it. That sort of
Yeah, and I think
ability comes onto you. Yeah,
this is why you
that's
become
a
an
nice
entrepreneur.
thing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
For those who don't know what a management buyout is, because I was talking to my girlfriend about this, and she was like, "Yeah, I've never heard anyone do this." So how would you describe that, a management buyout?
Yeah, so basically, it's the current management of the company is, but not the owners, is taking over the company from the owner,
Yeah.
and yeah, so that happens quite a bit, and I do think it's a good construction because you've got
Mhm.
the people who know the company that are actually gonna run it in the future. You have an owner that is pretty sure that it gets a safe house in the future because we've managed to run it in the years before. So it's a good way of transferring the ownership. I would say, yeah.
Yeah. But isn't it like tough from I can imagine it like from a deal perspective. So the previous owners, they also have complete information on the company, and you do too. So that must sort of make it tough deal making process, because in many of the negotiations you see that, for example, investors put a lot of effort into knowing all about the company that they're trying to invest in.
Yeah.
But in this case, they already know everything. So doesn't that put you in a bad position as the buyer?
Um, it's an interesting question. Yeah, I think in our case we both knew the company pretty well, and it's
Mhm.
about the potential that it has in the future. Obviously, when you're talking about the value of it, so that's something you can discuss about. But we've been talking about the companies for over years. So there was not a lot of discrepancy between how we two looked at the company. So I think that made it pretty easy. We didn't need a lot of time. You know, we were discussing the numbers every month anyway. We were discussing the route of the company like every quarter or every half year anyway, and we were also coming to the conclusion that the route I had in mind was a bit different than they had in mind. So that was clear as well. So I guess we were more on the same line than two people that just meet each other for a deal, or two parties who meet each other for a deal and need to end up in the middle, something like that. We established the middle ground pretty soon.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. 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 I can imagine that it's a thing where it can actually also sort of, like you said, it's pretty soon that you got the middle ground. So it can actually shorten the deal process as well, right? Because everyone knows it. That can also be the effect, basically. Then
Yeah, yeah.
interesting.
So for us, the longest time was about, are we going to do this? So
Yeah.
for me, but also from the previous owner. And then when we made the decision, we actually put the deal together in 1 quarter. So the whole practical stuff that usually takes
Yeah.
years.
Yeah.
For us, that was pretty quick. Yeah.
Cool. Wow. So here we love automation and caffeine, as you know. Now the caffeine part I will not bore you with anymore, but we do love automation. So we have this AI, and we have it create a dilemma. And for you, we have the following dilemma, and we know that you're on the lookout to expand the team. So maybe this is more a question to Merlin, your partner in the business. But would you rather hire a team of excellent developers, but they only communicate in memes, or would you hire a team that speaks perfect, like BBC level English, but they communicate project statuses as if it were news reports? So would you like excellent developers, like the best there is, but they can only communicate in memes? Or would you have a team that yeah, it's maybe it's an external team, it's perfect English, but they give you everything as a news report?
So I'm curious what Milan would say on this question.
Yeah.
Maybe we will learn it afterwards. But I would choose the great developers any day. So
Yeah.
And I know developers are pretty creative in communicating with other channels than words, or other channels that I usually communicate. So just to give an introduction, I am not a developer myself. My partner Merlijn, he's the CTO, so he leads the development team. I think great developers connect with each other on a whole different level than a lot of talk. It's
Yeah.
they look at their codes, they review their codes, it's I think they understand each other by looking at their codes. Oh, this is the way you think. And if you
Yeah.
have developers that are on the same level, that can go pretty quick, and not a lot of words are needed.
Yeah. I mean, I know that in our chat, we always have a lot of memes come by during the meeting, even. So
Yeah,
I think it's a really good choice to go for the meme communicating, super good developer indeed. Yeah. And you already said this, like it's a tech company indeed. And in previous episodes of the show, we've talked about the shocking experiences that working with developers can have for business-oriented people like you. How do you manage a development team effectively in your
yeah,
company, not being a tech person? I mean,
yeah. So first of all, we have split things up.
yeah,
Merlijn is managing the development team as a developer himself.
yeah.
But I do work a lot with developers, and I had to learn that over the years as well. And actually, a few years ago, I said to myself, because at the beginning I was mainly hiring developers, and then I had to hire a salesperson and do an interview with a salesperson. And I found that the interview with hiring a salesperson was way much more difficult for me than hiring a developer.
Oh, how come?
Yeah, because but that's probably the learning curve I had at the beginning. So it was at the beginning, it was obviously something new for me. But with developers, it's either a one or a zero. And
Yeah.
a developer is most of the times pretty straight and honest,
Mhm.
probably a bit modest as well about their accomplishments, and you just need to get them a bit more out of their comfort zone, and they will tell you the straight story. How's it, maybe it needs a translation into my reality, but it is what it is, and that's actually what I really like about working with developers. They're straight. Maybe also can be confronting because
Mhm.
this just doesn't work in my world, and because of these and these reasons, so let's move on to the next topic. There's not a lot of blah blah around it. It's
Yeah.
really straight, and that's something over the years I've learned to appreciate, because it's a reliable source of information as well.
Yeah. Yeah, if you're a salesperson listening, close your ears right now, because we often joke internally that salespeople are especially good at selling themselves. And
Yeah,
I guess that for developers, indeed, they care more about like the facts of the things, and salespeople. It's also their job, of course, to sort of tell the story. But then you as the sort of recruiting party want to get to the bottom of it, obviously. Yeah.
yeah. So
How yeah,
with
how do
a
you do that?
Yeah, so with a developer, when you have a job interview or when you're talking about stuff, they just have a list of what's important. So it's
Yeah.
about what's the commute time to work, how is lunch arranged, what kind of stack do you work with, and what's the roadmap look like,
Yeah.
and then check. Okay, and what do you expect from me? And then we're sort of on the same page, and then you know that it's there.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
when it's with a salesperson, it could be like, yeah, it's great, we're on the same page, and then they're like, yeah, I thought about it for another day, and then a total different thought came up. And I'm like,
Yeah.
where are you? And then on the other hand, I'm thinking maybe I'm a bit similar like that as well, but I'm more used to working with developers now, and I have to say, I like it quite a bit. Yeah,
Okay. Well, then it's handy that you're running a tech company.
yeah.
What is the biggest difference in how you manage it now that the company is, let's say, on its own, versus how it was done before when Marvia is part of a bigger club, or is there no difference between that?
We are experimenting more, and
Yeah.
we're giving our experiments more time. So we know that our answer to our BHAG or plan in the next 6 years is in experimenting. We need to go. We need to go into the unknown, both on a development level, but also on a marketing and a proposition level. That's
Mhm.
where our answers lie, and not in the sort of safe grounds. And that's
Yeah.
actually my role has changed over the years as well within the
Mhm.
company, and being first really operational within the company. I think one of my most important tasks right now is to really empower the team to start those new initiatives and make sure we are actually failing, or we are actually trying. And yeah, previously it was more about, it was really ran on the numbers and on the results, whereas you might know, as a starting SaaS company, the numbers are never really impressive because you're
No.
mostly, yeah, you're mostly
You
investing.
try to make them look impressive, but sometimes it's really hard.
Yeah,
Like, oh, this hockey curve goes the wrong way. That's not what we want to show.
yeah.
Yeah.
And now we still do have targets, and we still look at them, and they are still quite important for us. But
Yeah.
the targets are not most important. The process below the targets, and that we're improving on the process constantly. That's what's
Yeah.
actually making a difference.
Yeah. The compounding building that you were always saying, you were saying
Yeah,
that you
yeah.
really
So
like.
I'm
Yeah.
less worried if our target is behind, versus if we are not really on a week to week basis are making steps in our process. If we are lagging behind on that, then
Yeah.
we do really have a problem.
Yeah. Yeah. That makes sense. And so we said like the sales and marketing team, they are definitely very different departments, different type of people. How have you organized the feedback from sales and marketing to the development team? That's one of those things that many companies find very difficult because of that difference in those two people. Since
Yeah.
you get along with both, I would say maybe you have some insights in that.
Yeah. So I could say that I have organized that, but I think
But that's
we have
Berlin.
uh, I think it's, in our case, it's actually, and I think that's a great good. The development team organized it,
Oh,
and
really? Oh, that's good.
is really organizing. And of course, sales is firing away stuff when we are in a pitch and we don't have a
Yeah.
feature, for example. But the key is to get our feedback in a timely manner and sort
Mhm.
of get away from the N is one examples.
Yeah.
So really find the sort of commonalities that we find in the market. And but this is actually a really hot topic with us right now, as we are growing as a team. We sort of need a middle ground where we meet and where we discuss. This is market input. That's what I would say is sales and marketing input. So market input, and
Yeah.
that's the product roadmap, and how are we actually going to connect those two together.
Yeah.
So we did that now over the past year, with it's sort of a triangle between our head of customer success,
Yeah.
Marlijn, the CTO, and then our product marketer. So those
Yeah.
those three really create the input from sales and marketing, and
Oh,
translate it
yeah.
to the
Yeah, so you
roadmap.
have a team because I feel that many companies would have a like well we would call that like a product manager in that position that would have that specific job to sort of align those three things
Yeah,
indeed.
yeah.
But you do that with a small team.
We are now in the process of getting a product owner on board, because
Yeah,
you need one objective person to
exactly.
sort of weigh the balances. But it's also a matter of resources, that we had to do
Of
it
course.
like this for a while, and now we're
Yeah.
changing. And one thing I have to add, we've made quite some good steps on the US market in the past years,
Yeah.
and I think instrumental in that case has been the input of Christopher, our first
Yeah.
Marvin over there on the ground, who's been a seasoned salesperson, and
Yeah.
that doesn't only reflect in getting the pitch right, but
Hmm.
also distilling the needs from the market and getting that back to the team. So
Yeah.
for example, he was saying, I'm into a lot of pitches where companies in the US are only asking for these features. This is
Yeah.
not our bread and butter. We need to move more to this market, and that's
Wow.
crucial information for the development team to get from a salesperson. So it's a good
Yeah.
salesperson. What they are saying, they have 10 ears and one mouth. That's really crucial in this case as well.
Yeah, it's really interesting to hear that a salesperson would say, like, "Look, we're sort of in the, if I understand correctly, like slightly in the wrong market, or sort of like slightly off. And if we move into this space, that's where we really add value." That is a very interesting one, because you can always go like, "Oh, we need feature X or Y or
Yeah.
whatever," but really saying like, "Look, I think if we shift a little bit." Oh, that's very interesting. And then how did you handle that feedback? Because yeah, I mean,
Yeah, so at the beginning, it's like we are not really succeeding in these pitches, but we were actually also not really succeeding in the other pitches. So, but I was together in these pitches, and I saw that there was more traction. So
yeah.
we needed to check off a few boxes, and then we would
Mhm.
get into the sweet spot of those customers as well.
Yeah.
So, but we had to convince the company, maybe like, okay, this is what we see, and this is what we actually need to add, or these are the measures we need to take. But I think in general, because I think that grows also from Merlijn's vision, as he's a CTO and he is a developer, but he has a broader vision on the company. And I
Mhm.
think the two developers, David and Niels, that are actually working in his slipstream, those are also guys that are not just developing. They know that we are also doing it for the market. And the more junior
Yeah.
guys, well, they get the same sense of working. So on both levels, both on the sales and the development part, I think it's important that you don't have to become a salesperson as a developer, but you need to be able to switch. What are they
Yeah.
actually doing?
Yeah. Yeah. That makes sense. That, yeah. So it's because it sounds very impressive that you've sort of linked the teams together that well, so that they understand each other. Because I think that that's indeed where sort of that success comes from. Probably that developers understand who they're doing it for, and they understand at least a little bit like what that person that's using the software is actually trying to achieve, and that you can then help them achieve that. That's a really interesting
Still,
way that you've
still, still
done
lots of
that.
steps to take, yeah.
Yeah.
But we are there on a certain level, and it's now, for example, we really want the development team to start developing out of personas and
Yeah.
out of a product vision. So they really need to think with everything they do with that persona that is actually using the software back in mind.
Yeah. 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 So you've written down, and do you have one persona or multiple personas for that? Probably multiple, like for the
Yeah,
different roles, right? Yeah.
yeah. So we were, so it's actually one person that is working at a head office that is
Yeah.
doing that is organizing all the marketing campaigns, and then the local entities. So think of franchisees or partners or resellers that are putting out the local marketing collateral. Those are different persons slash dynamics, but they are both there.
Cool. Did you give them a name? Do they have interesting names? Is it like, do you have an image of them on the
Yeah,
wall
so
or
we
something?
so first we were actually inspired by the Dutch bank Bank has has put this through quite well.
Yeah.
So they work with, I think they work with Eve, so,
Yeah.
their persona, and we had
Mhm.
two, and I think at one point we had Adam and Eve, but this needs some iteration. So
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
that's actually work in progress. But I think that's important, and then combining them, because this is a bit theoretical and up in the air, but also to have developers in calls with customers.
Yeah.
Maybe not uh, sometimes sitting in, like presenting the new feature, how it's actually used,
Mhm.
but sometimes it can also be that if we are sort of presenting the features that are built, we record it and we share it with the development team, and then they can see the instant response, and that's just crucial information, and it gets across totally differently versus I would debrief it.
Yeah. 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 I see. I see how that works. That's something that we don't do yet, but it's interesting to look into, honestly.
Yeah,
um.
you've
Yeah.
got all these recording software and transcribe of calls, so
Of
it's
course.
it's
Yeah.
perfect timing for it. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, we record everything. It's these days everyone does all the calls digitally anyway, so that's helpful.
Most definitely.
So as you know, every episode we have a chain question, and last time we had Claudia on, who's a community manager for many communities, and she had the following question for you.
I've always been a little bit scared for marketing companies and agencies when it comes to AI, right? Everyone is talking about AI, and so I always think about, oh, how are the marketing teams making sure that they still leverage AI, but they maintain the authenticity in their content? And so, for such a successful company, I would ask, how do you maintain your authenticity using AI?
Yeah,
There you go.
thank you for the question. So there are two ways of looking at this for me. So me as Marvia as a company, but we of course our customer base is into marketing as well. So let's first answer it from ourselves.
Yeah,
So we think that the authenticity of messaging becomes the only differentiator in your marketing message now. And so we already see that happening is that now and probably for the next year or two, a content pile will be created of chat GPT sort of nonsense. Like it's not original.
yeah,
The same prompts are given, and probably a lot of content will be put out. But on the other hand, Google will recognize it as well and will appreciate authentic content more.
yeah, yeah,
So in the end, now we are sort of at the beginning. It's there is a efficiency gain by getting the whole AI into your content writing or in your marketing. But I think the appreciation for really authentic content will only get bigger, and I think we already see that. Like people get really put off by the multiple. So if you look at cold outbounding or emailing,
oh yeah,
people,
yeah,
including me, are really getting resistant to all the LinkedIn messages, emailing, so not original, and
yes.
some scripts are even putting in mistakes into the emails to make it look authentic.
Yeah,
And yeah, the I think maybe that'll lead to an appreciation of going to an expo, meeting people, seeing them face to face, and then connect over that. And then after that, the whole onboarding process or whatever can be automated in a quite a
yeah,
good way. Yeah,
yeah, yeah. I fully agree that the authenticity and sort of the human connection is the thing that should probably then take the upper hand. It's interesting that you say that Google will recognize that. I think yeah, that's actually a good point. That when you put out so many sort of similar things with AI, that will probably be a differentiator in weight that they give you. So if you do the same
yeah,
thing that everyone else does, that you'll probably be scored very low, and if you don't, then you'll be scored high. Yeah,
yeah,
that makes
yeah,
sense.
yeah.
Do you use it yourself, AI, in the marketing process then? Like,
I use it as an assistant
yeah,
myself. So where do I use it for? So for example, if um, I was when I have sort of an idea about a big presentation or pitch or how should I bring it together, then I actually first put my whole
mhm,
outline into my own text document, and then I put it into AI, and then I'm asking, can you give a little bit of twist of this or that? But then the prompt is really specific, and then
yeah,
then I found the outcome to be yeah, pretty useful. But I'm also discovering like what triggers good outcomes. So that's an interesting process in itself. Yeah.
yeah. Okay, cool. Let's see. We have some questions that we are gonna handle. So again, if you have any questions still, then feel free to put them in the comments. We'll pick them up if they're still during the live. Let's see. Alex asks, what emerging trends do you believe will significantly impact brand management?
Yeah. So a few things. I think in general, and that's not only brand management, communities are becoming more important around. So there are two invaluable assets that you have as a company, and brand used to be the one. So and of course I'm into that church of your brand is really important,
Yes.
but it's the most intangible asset that you have as a company. And if someone would buy companies, smaller ones or bigger ones, basically the only thing that they can't really replicate is a brand, but also a community that is following the brand. And then that's becoming more and more important. Also relating to your previous question with AI and very generic content, I think a community makes it unique, and the whole brand feeling around it. Those two are getting really important. So brand management will have an evolution towards this is your brand, but what's the community around it, and how do you manage your community around your brand? So it's maybe not so much only about, okay, this is my brand, this is how I'm going to put it out. But what am I getting back from the people? What am I getting back from my community, and how am I actually interacting with them? That's an important one. Yeah, and an open door is the AI part of things, but that's process optimization, I would also say. And I can not look that far, of course. Maybe a creative impulse will follow later as well. But for now, we are mostly looking at operational efficiency and what that can do to it.
Yeah, interesting that you mentioned community, because Claudia last time was debating that that communities that are closed are usually more interactive, and then here the glue would be sort of the brand that you create and the values. I assume that come from the brand, and that you try that to make that sort of into the main the binding factor in the community, I would say.
Yeah. So it also differs on your on the kind of brand or product that you have. So, for example, with our own Marvia brand, the community might be a little bit more close because it's a B2B product. But if you work as a B2C product and you have fans of your product, I think you already see that happening, right? The big fans that are on socials and are really putting out your brand in the right way. You only want to stimulate that.
Yeah, indeed. Luke has the following question. Can you share a success story that really puts a spotlight on your strategy post buyout? So after the buyout, is there something that you can say like, hey, that was really made possible because of that?
I think the steps we took in the US, first going into that market, and then having giving it the time, having the resilience sort of to go through. I think that's really something that came out of our buyout. So that's one example of also doing something because it's fun, and it's fun, and it can do good for the company, but we don't know actually where it's going to end up. I think I think we have several of those cases, and definitely one is more successful than the other. But it's fun to talk about the successful stuff, right?
Of course.
This is one that turned out well and made a huge impact for our company on all levels. So yeah, really glad with the freedom we took over there and the time we have given ourselves.
Yeah. How much time did you give it before it was sort of arguably a success? Sort of tangible, I would say.
Yeah. So for me, the success might not have come with numbers. So that's again, it was not only about the numbers, but when the process was, I remember we were hacking away for half a year or 8 months or something, and then we were talking to a Fortune 500 company that was that sort of made the decision to start with Marvia. So there was a banger for our first customer, and then they got taken over by private equity, and with that takeover, everything froze. So we were like, shit. But that proved for me, like, okay, we are able to provide something different than the market, and we are able to get this far. So that was for me, and I think our first revenue only came close to 2 years after we started.
Wow.
So it was
Yeah.
0 for the first 2 years. Yeah.
Yeah. I can imagine that having such a big sort of almost celebratory event does show that indeed that's good proof. And then seeing that within a year, yeah, that does make all the difference. Would you have pulled the plug if it would have been more than a year without any success? Like, arguably, this is a success if you get that close. So,
yeah, if there wouldn't have been any traction, like
Yeah.
people saying like, what are you doing? Or maybe it's nice for in the Netherlands, but in the US, we've
Yeah.
got discovered in a different way. Then you've got to be able to pull the plug as well. Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, I would have done that, and we have done that in the past as well, because we got to be careful with our resources.
Of course.
I think that's also part of the A/B testing or the experimenting vibe, that you're able to pull the plug at some point as well. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Last question that we have. I think this is an interesting one. What is your top tip for someone debating a buyout versus creating a startup from scratch? If you would be in that position, I mean, you could have also said like, "Hey, Merlijn and I are gonna, we're gonna move and build something that because you took the company a slightly different direction. I think that you said. So yeah, why not just start from scratch? Why do it this way?
Yeah. I think you need to know yourself pretty well, and you need to find the company and the phase where the company is in that matches your personality. So we've had very creative, sort of visionary guys who created the company Marvia. So that's actually where we. So they made the company SaaS before a lot of people were talking about SaaS. They hosted everything for Marvia, I think, as the first or one of the first ones at Amazon Web Services before anyone did it.
Oh.
And so those are guys that are really, and they went on for other really entrepreneurship and have become quite successful in that sense. So they are really good at that phase. One of the founders also told to me, when it starts to look like a company, I should get away. That's really their sweet spot.
Yeah.
I think I am more like what I also said. I'm a builder, I'm a runner, so I'm also a bit of a worker, and I like to experiment stuff. I like to explore, but I'm not really someone who's really starting up from scratch and has visions for 10 years. And so that's, for me, this is sort of the perfect phase. Really experiment with the company. We really need to find our way, but we've got something established, and we can build from that.
Cool. Okay. That is all that we have time for today. The next episode will be live on March 13th, and we'll have Srinivas Rao on. And Srini is the host of the popular podcast Unmistakable Creative. Joep, thanks for coming on the show. I hope that you had a good time, and you know that there's one last thing that we always have to do, and that is, what is your question to Srini?
Yeah. Maybe not that original, but I also have a question around marketing and AI. So my question is, in 5 years, where does the human creative work start and the AI creative work stop? So there will be, and there is already, some work being replaced by AI.
Yeah.
But as we grow into the more complex part of the creative work, it becomes also increasingly challenging for AI to replace this. And I'm curious where this border will be.
Interesting question. We'll ask that to Srini.
Yeah.
Thanks. So remember, March 13th. Thanks to everyone who tuned in and who's listening on a podcast. If you like our show, please follow Trigger on LinkedIn or go to automationcaffeine.com. This show will also be made available as a podcast on all major podcast channels. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you March 13th. Thanks, you.
Thank you.